Despite the state that Cyberpunk 2077 ended up releasing in, there still is a lot to uncover and explore throughout the game. Now, we've already looked through a lot of the glitches that were just kind of there through a regular playthrough, but along the way, more and more players are starting to realize that there's a lot of places that you can go and explore, because for the most part, there aren't any boundaries set up to prevent you from going to a lot of really interesting places, which generally in a game like this, something we really like, because we can go and see different things that maybe weren't initially intended, or even concepts for things that were cut along the way. But now, some players have actually discovered a monorail system that was likely intended to be a major part of Night City that was scrapped altogether in the later stages of development, and you can go around and explore and see quite a bit of what this whole section is like, and it's really cool. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So initially, this actually became popularized online by a Reddit user with the username Cyberpunk, who was exploring the train area, the monorail system, as you could kind of climb your way up to where the trains and monorails would pass through. And as you begin to explore and go further and further out, you start to notice that there may have been some very intentional areas that players were supposed to access at some point during the game. And Cyberpunk went on to explore the entire area and kind of concluded that there was supposed to be some sort of fully functioning train system, and likely CD Projekt Red ended up cutting it late in development because they didn't have time to finish it up, though a lot of the assets are just there in plain sight that you can walk over and explore. One thing that we thought was incredibly interesting in this discovery definitely is the fact that some of these doors are even accessible, and you can go inside unfinished buildings that likely were some sort of train station where you would go through there. And essentially, there's this big, large, sprawling layout where these railroad monorail system would likely have run. You can literally follow these paths on foot and see where the trains would have traveled through, since that was all laid out already and just deactivated and cut in kind of that last leg. Interestingly enough, in some sections, there's still a monorail train that will go by, though it functions a little bit oddly at times, almost resembling that of a car, but then it acts really weirdly as well. A lot of players have posted videos online of them just kind of riding through on top of the monorail where it lets them, and you can see there is some sort of attention to detail and design here, which is very interesting just to see that something as ambitious as this that likely was almost completed ended up getting cut in that last hour, and we are kind of left with just the skeleton of what almost ended up making its way into the final release of the game. Now, what we most likely think would have been the case was that this was at some point going to be a transportation method that players would experience. Whether this would have been a part tied to a narrative where you would have experienced some sort of story in the train carts themselves is still up in the air, but it also could have just served as a fast travel type thing, similar to what we have in the game, but instead you actually would be able to enter the locations and walk up to the trains themselves, and maybe even have some sort of system like what you would see in maybe Call of Duty Modern Warfare's Warzone, where you have a subway system that you get in, and then once you're in the train car, it teleports you to the location you want to travel to. This could have been the case, though we think with the system they have set up and how intricate and how many locations there are for regular fast travel, more than likely we think it would have served more of a story emphasis and an exploration emphasis and less of an actual fast travel functionality. Also, another reason we kind of believe this is that we think this whole train system setup would have been another additional part of the city that players would explore, just like a lot of the neighborhoods and other areas along the way that you typically run into when playing through Cyberpunk 2077. This is actually tied to the fact that other players, while exploring the train system area, have discovered buildings that are kind of tucked away and hidden off that have entrances and areas you can walk around in, along with full-on names to these buildings that don't serve any real function in the game. They don't have any significant storylines or side jobs or even gigs associated with them, and they're located kind of up in these upper areas around where the monorail system would have been and would have run through. likely meaning that there was this extra area that didn't make its way into the final game, and since for the most part they had to build the city outwards and keep that city intact, when it came time to start cutting things off, this upper level, this upper monorail type area ended up getting cut. Now, we are very optimistic that maybe we'll see a return of this area in one of the DLCs in the future. It is a possibility. It is maybe something even intended that they're going to kind of finish that for a DLC release later on, and just the first level of assets were put in early. Or maybe this will just remain something that was never included and cut out altogether. Though we do hope we get to see it one day in some form or another, maybe in the multiplayer launch or something else down the road. But nonetheless, when things like this make their way into the final release of the game, and it's so obviously something that was cut out of the game, it becomes really interesting, because it's almost like you're uncovering a mystery as you go. So what do you guys think of the monorail system? Is this something you think should be added into Cyberpunk 2077? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, do actually consider subscribing. I'm a brand new channel here on YouTube. I want to cover Cyberpunk 2077 far into the future. So if you love this game as much as I do, and you want just regular content about the lore or about different things you might not have known about this game, be sure to subscribe with notifications on, because I'm going to be putting out some of the best content I possibly can make. And it really means so much to a brand new channel to get that initial support to kind of get stuff off the ground. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time with the new upload.